Welcome, jesters. All right, a little bit of foundational laying here. There are no successful leftist policies, social or economic. Just keep that in mind if you ever have to engage with any of our friends on the left, be it in person, online, or whatever. They will come up with some interesting edge cases and things like that, or they'll just throw out some random statistic that they kind of think is an own or whatever, or they'll describe a scenario, often a theoretical scenario, or they will use their typical buzzwords about, caring about people and blah, blah, blah. But but when they do this, if you ever feel like, they're winning or they have you cornered or they've brought up something that you have never heard of, well, just rest assured, just remind yourself, it's fine. Don't worry. They are still wrong. You are still right, because there is no example of a leftist policy, of a successful leftist policy, social or economic. None. There are no examples. There literally are no examples. Everything that they've ever brought up, in a debate or even suggested might be successful, is not. With one caveat, okay? And this is the important thing. They'll bring up lots of successful examples, or like examples of things that they think are successful, right? In current speak, a transit solution or Social Security or some government program that they consider successful. However, it depends on how you judge success, right? I know this sounds a little bit weaselly, but just realize that anything can be made to look successful if you throw enough money at it, put enough people in jail, or just outright kill enough people. And this is true throughout history, right? Any successful policy that's going on here, any successful Democrat policy here in the United States is only successful because they are stealing, in some cases, billions of dollars to prop it up, right? Social Security is a drain on society. Anybody who's contributed to Social Security, you are getting a net negative return on that investment, right? There's only a few very, very tiny little edge cases, maybe, where you might come out ahead, and that's if you started working late in life, filled out major quarterly requirements, then got disabled, and then immediately retired and lived long enough to collect more than you put in, then it's possible. But for the rest of us normal people who contribute, what we get out of Social Security will be nowhere near what we could have gotten if we had simply invested this money in a very basic, market return rate fund, like a basic index fund on one of the basic indexes. So it's not successful. They just have to steal your money to make it look successful. And then, of course, other leftist regimes throughout history, the 1930s Germans, the Soviets, the Chinese, if you didn't comply, well, they just offed you. That's pretty much it, right? The dictators in South America, well, they're fond of just putting people in jail. So, yes, you can make any policy look successful if you're willing to steal enough money, put enough people in jail, or just basically get rid of anybody who disagrees, right? However, there's one thing I've seen them try a couple times, especially recently, and that's, well, now I say science, but usually around medicine, vaccines, right? And they will, of course, use the vaccine for the nonsense, but it doesn't work with science either. And let me tell you why. The one thing, hopefully, we could all agree on is science should not be political, and it's not. Try as they might, they cannot make math political. They can't make math racial. They can't make chemistry, a DEI thing, right? It's just the science just is the science. And I wish I could say that meant trust the science is real, but unfortunately, you can still hide the results, or you can still have bad scientists, or you can still pursue science for a political agenda. And then you pursue it poorly because you're choosing not necessarily the best scientists, but those who are willing to advance your agenda. There's a reason why the Soviets could not build a successful bomber without stealing one of ours. There's a reason the Chinese could not make a successful jet aircraft without rummaging through literal wreckage of a Boeing 707, right? They just can't do it on their own. So, even the left can't even do science correctly. And if they do try the example of a person who is a successful scientist who might have left-leaning thoughts, just remember, and I've said this before, talent does not mean smart. You can be a brilliant chemist or a brilliant mathematician, but be, well, absolutely dumb as rocks when talking about politics. You know I'm right.